Destroyers of World War II. Workhorses of the Allied sea power. Destroyers were often considered the workhorses of the Allied fleets during World War II. Fast, versatile, and heavily armed, these ships played a critical role in escorting convoys, hunting submarines, and engaging enemy surface ships. They often found themselves at the center of the most desperate naval actions, where their speed and firepower proved invaluable. The destroyers' resilience and the bravery of their crews became legendary as they stood against overwhelming odds time and again. This narrative is sponsored by Polly Speaks For You. The creator of Polly Speaks For You has always been passionate about empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You isn't just a tool. It's a bridge for people to communicate and interact with the world in a meaningful way. By blending historical storytelling with cutting-edge tech, the creator showcases how powerful a voice can be, whether telling your own story or preserving history. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button and help this channel grow. Now back to the story. The early days, a race for naval supremacy. At the outbreak of World War II, destroyers were already a staple of most major navies. Designed originally for the torpedo boat destroyer role, these ships evolved into multi-purpose platforms capable of engaging in surface combat, anti-aircraft defense, and anti-submarine warfare. The rise of the U-boat threat in the Battle of the Atlantic made destroyers essential to Allied convoys, where they became the primary defense against German submarines, safeguarding the lifeline between North America and Britain. Anecdote from a British officer aboard HMS Glowworm. We'd had our share of close calls escorting convoys, dodging U-boats and aircraft, but nothing prepared us for what happened off Norway. When we spotted that cruiser, it was like looking at a giant. Our ship was tiny in comparison, but we didn't falter. One of the most famous incidents of bravery during these early days was the action involving the British destroyer HMS Glowworm. While escorting a convoy, Glowworm encountered the German heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper. Captain Gerard Rupp, realizing the odds were against him, made the bold decision to ram the larger vessel. Glowworm was eventually sunk, but not before inflicting damage on the enemy. Rupp was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, the first British naval officer of the war to receive it. The Battle of the Atlantic, Hunters of the Deep. As the war progressed, the destroyers found their most crucial role in the Battle of the Atlantic. The German Kriegsmarine's U-boat fleet, under Admiral Karl Donitz, was strangling the supply lines feeding Britain. The Allies' response came in the form of convoy escorts, and destroyers were at the forefront of this battle. Equipped with depth charges, sonar, and eventually radar, these ships became adept at detecting and destroying submarines. Ships like the HMS Cossack and USS Nicholas earned their reputations as expert submarine hunters. Diary entry of Seaman Joe Collins, USS Nicholas. Convoy duty was never easy. Days of endless gray seas. The constant fear of a torpedo hitting us out of nowhere. But it was the destroyers that kept the wolves at bay. We knew our boys up top were keeping us safe. By mid-1943, thanks to new technologies like long-range aircraft and improved radar, the tide of the Atlantic battle began to turn in the Allies' favor. Destroyers were responsible for sinking a large number of U-boats, reducing the threat they posed and ensuring the steady flow of troops and supplies across the ocean. The Pacific Theater, destroyers in island battles. In the vast expanse of the Pacific, destroyers played a different but equally vital role. Their ability to move quickly and deliver devastating attacks made them ideal for the island-hopping campaign waged by the U.S. Navy. Destroyers often escorted aircraft carriers and transports, protecting them from enemy submarines and aircraft. They also provided critical shore bombardment during amphibious landings, such as those at Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. Reminiscence of Lieutenant John Stewart, USS Fletcher. We called ourselves the Fighting Fletchers. Every island we hit, we were there to clear the way. We'd steam in, guns blazing, hammer the shorelines, and then cover the landing boats. The enemy didn't know what hit them. One of the most famous destroyers of the Pacific War was the USS Johnston. Commanded by the fearless commander Ernest E. Evans, the Johnston distinguished itself in the battle off Samar. When the small force of American destroyers and escort carriers was attacked by a vastly superior Japanese fleet, Johnston led a charge against the enemy's heavy cruisers and battleships. Although Johnston was eventually lost, its actions delayed the Japanese and helped save the carriers. Anecdote from a survivor of USS Johnston. We were outnumbered 10 to 1, maybe worse, but Captain Evans never hesitated. He just said, "We're attacking," and we did. I never saw courage like that. Even when we were hit and taking on water, we kept fighting. For his leadership, Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Johnston's sacrifice is remembered as one of the most heroic actions in naval history. The Mediterranean and beyond, global engagement. While the Atlantic and Pacific saw some of the largest battles of the war, destroyers were also critical in the Mediterranean. British and American destroyers escorted convoys to Malta, hunted Axis submarines, and engaged in fleet actions against Italian and German ships. In these confined waters, the destroyers' speed and maneuverability gave them an edge. Ships like HMS Nestor and ORP Pioron, a Polish destroyer in service with the Royal Navy, became famous for their actions in these waters. Pioron, in particular, was part of the operation to hunt down the German battleship Bismarck. At one point, Pioron engaged Bismarck directly, firing her guns at the massive battleship to distract it while the Royal Navy closed in. Reminiscence from ORP Pioron's captain. We knew we couldn't sink her, but we could harass her, make her nervous, and maybe give the big ships time to catch up. Every shot we fired felt like a message. We're not afraid of you. End of the war. The legacy of the destroyers. By the time World War II ended in 1945, destroyers had proven themselves as one of the most indispensable elements of naval warfare. They had fought in every theater of the war, from the freezing North Atlantic to the sweltering Pacific, and against every enemy, from submarines to battleships. They had protected vital convoys, engaged enemy fleets, and supported countless landings across the globe. The destroyers were more than just ships. They were symbols of tenacity, bravery, and innovation. Crewed by men who often found themselves up against overwhelming odds, they stood as the backbone of Allied sea power. Their legacy is one of courage and sacrifice, and their stories continue to inspire generations. As historian Samuel Eliot Morison wrote, destroyers were, in a sense, the unsung heroes of the naval war. Small in size but mighty in spirit, they carried the weight of the war on their decks. From the first days of the Atlantic convoys to the last battles of the Pacific, these ships and their crews made the difference between victory and defeat. Final diary entry of Seaman First Class Thomas Ward, USS Johnston. We weren't the biggest, but we fought like giants. We were destroyers, and we never backed down. I'll remember my captain, my shipmates, and my ship for the rest of my days. USS Johnston may be gone, but she'll never be forgotten. The destroyers of World War II will forever be remembered as the backbone of the Allies' naval power. Ships that stood in the face of danger and persevered through the fire and fury of war. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za and support this meaningful dyslexic initiative. Thank you for watching.